how to learn difficult languages, African languages, Asian languages. Let's talk about that. I've got a really interesting comment here, a really long comment, by the way, but I don't mind long comments when they're actually good. Bellstar1128 says, interesting. I was always using most of the techniques you mentioned with comprehensible input and noticed that it worked well after studying for a very short time in languages like Spanish. So I thought it was perfect, but when I try to learn Asian and African languages, it's really annoying to use comprehensible input since it really takes a long time to learn all the unique vocabulary. I also noticed some types of content is more useful for this. Like I won't bother with podcasts until later on. Again, with a West European language like Spanish, I could understand them after just a short period of study. But for more exotic languages, it really takes years. I still can't handle podcasts in Tamil. Yeah, that I haven't tried learning that, but it sounds difficult. I have a friend I met in his native language was Tamil. I met him in Berlin. I have the podcast in Tamil after 4 years, but watching movies is better because I can see what's going on. Yes and no. Uh, yeah, for very difficult language, films is going to be video is going to be better because it's very well. Let's let's put it this way: if your comprehension is not good, then video is better. If your comprehension is getting good and you have a lot of vocabulary and that and you know pronunciation well, podcasts are much more time efficient and better in general, right? But you have to get there first. Okay, so better podcasts. I often lose the plot and I'm more likely to focus on movies. Well, the main reason I like podcasts is because I can listen to them while doing something else. Exactly. So it's harder to focus, but I can do this all day today. Today was way too busy, so I just listened to podcasts all day while doing work. I couldn't watch movies or study today. I think one reason why comprehensible input is promoted so much is because a lot of people, especially Americans and other native English speakers, had a horrible time learning Spanish in school and think this is the main way of learning languages. So comprehensible input seems like a big revelation to them, but even some non-native English speakers, places like the Netherlands or Scandinavia, forgot that they learned English. So even to them, it seems like a big revelation. After having mandatory French classes in school and not learning anything, if I was smart enough to just play some video games or watch French TV after school instead of only English, maybe my French would have been great by now. Or not since back then, or not since back then most video games were English only. I could get TV channels in French because of my region, but not from most countries. So there's a lot of there's a lot here, and there's a lot of interesting things. One, the comprehensible input being pushed by people who have failed in school at Spanish, and they think they discover comprehensible input, and in comparison, it's good instead of language classes. So they see that they notice that they're starting to understand more and more. So okay, yeah, it's good. It's not efficient. It's very inefficient. And also, these are all easy languages. You notice the difference. Non-native speakers in places like the Netherlands or Scandinavia, all those places, they have really good level of English. People from there, they have accents, but slight accents, but everyone speaks really good English. Maybe not everyone, but especially these days. But but most people in the Netherlands and Scandinavia have really good English. They don't dub the films. We do. In Spain, we everything's in Spanish. So let me think of some stupid film that have a different, dumb name in Spanish. I can't think of anything now, but they changed the names of the films as well. And until I was an adult, I didn't know what most people, most actors sound. I didn't know the real. You know, until I was in my 20s, I didn't know Arnold Schwarzenegger's real voice. It's it's stupid. Yeah, In Portugal, they speak way better English than in Spain because they watch everything in original version with subtitles in Portuguese. So they get used to listening to a lot of English. Now, that's by the time you're 20, that's almost 20 years of listening practice plus all the classes. So obviously that works. But that doesn't mean that if you when you're 20 you want to learn another language, you have to do another 20 years of watching stuff all the time, lots and lots of films, 20 years of films in another language, because that's obviously very inefficient. So in the Netherlands and Scandinavia, yeah, they first of all, the Germanic languages, they're not that different from English, and also they had classes, and they had 2 decades of or more of original content on TV. So you just go used to it, and at some point it just becomes natural to. And they use English a lot. They travel and they use English. It's very different if you're trying to learn something as an adult from scratch, and especially if it's a language that's very different and difficult. Like the comment here says, learning Asian languages, African languages, yeah, it's really annoying to use comprehensible input. Yeah, because it's going to be just noise. You don't know the vocab and any vocab, and the vocab won't be recognizable at all. For a Dutch person learning English, even for an American learning Spanish from scratch, a lot of vocab will be recognizable. If you're learning Swahili or something like that, or Arabic, you will you'll recognize the odd word here and there. That's a long word. It's an English word. Apart from that, you won't understand anything at all. And there's also pronunciation, which is very different and makes it even more difficult to. Even if you learn those words in isolation, it'd be very difficult to then recognize them when you hear them. So you have to deal with those two things, and no amount of input. I mean, eventually, if you put enough monkeys with typewriters, they'll write Shakespeare, right? But if you do 10 hours of input a day for 10 years, okay, yeah, eventually you'll understand the language somewhat. But if you want to improve fast, or you want to have results in reasonable time, you need to focus on learning lots and lots of vocab, and you have to focus on learning the right pronunciation. So if you're learning something like Tamil, like it says here, Tamil, how do you pronounce it? Tamil. Yeah, that's the way Joey used to say it, Tamil. Although he spoke weird in English, so I don't know. I don't know how you say it. Or Hindi, like I've got a guy learning Hindi now, and he's doing a lot of progress. I don't speak Hindi myself, but I'm helping someone learn it. Yeah, if you focus on learning lots of vocab and you do a lot of listening and repeating, mass sentences, listening and repeating, you learn the right pronunciation and the vocab. Eventually, eventually input gets easier and easier, and then from there you can start doing input after that. But you have to get there. Now, once you know a couple thousand words and you know the pronunciation well, and you can have basic conversations, input will start getting easier and easier. But before that, you will have to do a lot of work, of proper learning, and that's the only way to do it. And again, here, if instead of mandatory classes in French, I had that's my case as well. If instead of my classes I played video games and watched films and TV in French, I would have improved. Yeah, that's what I did for English as well. Most of my learning was video games, films, online, reading online, forums, things like that, and for French eventually as well. But my speaking didn't get good in either of those languages until I started doing a lot of speaking with native speakers. Now, when it comes to French, even then, because I never had I go to France often, and they come here on holiday, lots of French people. But Just by doing small talk here and there, you don't improve that much, even if your comprehension is really good. I didn't improve my French. I didn't become fluent, truly fluent, until I started doing deliberate practice with a lot of speaking exercises at home. It's either that or you spend a lot of time with native speakers and you talk a lot with them. But even then, I recommend doing deliberate practice at home because it's going to make the conversation with native speakers much easier, more enjoyable. You'll be able to say a lot more with fewer mistakes, and you'll have more vocab and more resources in general, more expressions, more advanced structures that you can use. So it's definitely worth it to work on your speaking on your own. So again, long comments. To summarize the whole thing, for especially this applies to any language, but especially for difficult languages, focus on learning lots of vocab with memorization and do listening and repeating drills and learn the right pronunciation. And with that, input will get easier and speaking will get easier. And then you can just keep practicing after that. But make sure you do a lot of work on both vocabulary and pronunciation first. Because without those, it's going to be impossible to have proper conversations or get decent input, right?